this is not a typo. We are talking NFL North. Both the NFC and the AFC North are on the show today, so there is a lot to talk about. Real quick, want to give a quick shout out to Kevin Bauer and Joe, who are in the comments right now already. Shout out to the both of you guys for already being here. Emmitt, let's start with you, my brother, because as I mentioned in the opener, for the first time in almost 2 decades, our Packers are going to have someone not named Aaron Rodgers lining up under center. There's been a lot of different mixed emotions surrounding with Jordan Love. There's been a lot of positivity from the players. There's been a lot of positivity from the fans. There's been some question marks from some media members. But as of course, he's also had some ups. He's had some downs. This is his first time really getting a good shot with the ones. What are realistic expectations for our Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love under center?
Well, I think it's going to be a little difficult to bring ourselves back down to not expecting full-on MVP quality play, right? That's really what we've been expecting since about 2010 when the Packers won the Super Bowl, all the way up through Aaron Rodgers last year with the Packers, which was last year. Listen, Jordan Love's only had 83 career pass attempts in the NFL, counting regular season games, no preseason. It's not a whole lot. I think realistic expectations for him is somewhere in the range of what Aaron Rodgers did as his first year as a starter in 2008. I think a little bit less. I believe Aaron Rodgers went 28-12 in terms of touchdowns to picks, and the Packers went 6-10. I think if the Packers reach about 7 wins this year, I think you look at this year as maybe not a success, as usually, it is title town, and that's what we should have in terms of expectations for the entire season. But I'm not entirely against having one of those worst seasons where we do see Jordan Love develop, because one of the things that I really don't want to happen is the team is having a lot of success and Jordan necessarily isn't. And then all of a sudden he's in these high pressure situations when really he's not even comfortable in the offense. I'm expecting to see a lot of, especially early, confusion. I'm expecting to see a lot of bad reads. I'm expecting some interceptions. And then throughout the season, as we've kind of seen throughout this training camp, he's started off in his first couple practices, we didn't really hear anything about him. And then as it's gone on, it's like, okay, here's a huge, I think it was a 67-yard touchdown to Christian Watson that he threw. He had another one today. I'm expecting some sort of improvement from him throughout the season. But I think that one of the things that's not necessarily helping Packers fans and maybe even the national media is kind of how archaic the Packers social media is. I think Complex Sports did a ranking of all the teams' social media, and the Packers are ranked 32nd out of 32 teams in the NFL. Yeah, and I say that because you get a lot of people, especially media. It's like, well, the Packers aren't posting anything about Jordan Love. That must mean that he sucks. I don't think so. The Packers, I think, especially when it comes to training camp, they have some sort of rules on limitations on what even fans are allowed to record and post, because they don't want a whole lot of stuff getting out. I think they're one of the only teams in the NFL that still has some sort of rule on that, and it's super archaic. So not a whole lot of the stuff that he does is really going to get out. You might see it through a tweet or something like that. But the Packers social media team really isn't doing a whole lot to help promote Jordan Love, which is why I think it's kind of tough to really gauge expectations, because obviously they're not going to post anything bad, but you'd think they would post some good, especially since we're hearing some of it, but we're not really seeing a whole lot. But anywhere around what Aaron Rodgers did in 2008 in terms of their record, in terms of his performance, I'm expecting double-digit interceptions. But if he can get it around that 25 touchdown mark, I think that we're probably in a good position. We can't expect him to come in and be Aaron Rodgers or have him come in and be like, we cannot expect a third, 15-year period of Hall of Fame quarterback play. We just can't. I think we need to be a little bit more realistic with it. And again, if he comes in and he's just solid this year, but we see some of those flashes, we see some of that improvement throughout the season. Maybe he starts off and, we go, 2-4 in the first half of the season or whatever. And then, that second half of the season, we're about 500, maybe a couple games above 500. And we finish with, anywhere between 7 and 9 wins. I think we have to look at that as a success for Jordan Love.
Payton, let's just round 25 touchdowns, 10 picks, 6-7 wins. Is that reasonable for Jordan Love's first year as the starter?
100%. My record predictions I came out with, I had the Packers at 6-11. In my opinion, a win for the Packers this year is that they don't need to draft a quarterback. If they just see enough out of Jordan Love that says he has something, a foundation in order to build on, then great. Then this is as good as it gets for the Packers this year. I don't see them as a playoff team, but that's okay because it's a transitional period. Now, like Emmitt said, I expect interceptions to happen quite frequently, maybe even more than 10. I mean, we're talking about a guy who in his last season in Utah State threw 17 in 2019, right? So unless they're running the ball a lot and kind of keeping the ball out of his hands a little bit, there's going to be turnovers and there's going to be tons of growing pain. Now, he does have very good arm talent. There's a reason why he was drafted as high as he was. But no, I don't really see the Packers contending for a playoff spot or anything. I'd say, you know what? If they're better than the Bears, it's a win. If they are better than the Bears, it's a win.
I think two things can be true. I think that Jordan Love can have a very pedestrian season and the Packers can make the playoffs. I'm not expecting the Packers to make the playoffs. I do think it's possible. And the reason why it's possible is because, number one, the Packers are playing a third-place schedule. It is the weakest schedule the Packers have played in a very long time. We haven't had a third-place schedule in a long time. When you look at the Lions, a lot of excitement there, as there should be. They're a good football team, but there are still some questions about the Detroit Lions. We'll talk about one of them in just a second. When you look at the Chicago Bears, they've made a lot of improvements this offseason, but there's still some questions, and we'll talk about one of them a little bit later. And then, of course, you have the Minnesota Vikings, whose defense isn't that good, and they played with fire all year long last season. So for me, not just as a Packers fan, but looking at this from a football perspective, if Jordan Love goes for what Aaron Rodgers did his first year, which is, let's say, 25-10, a 25-10 Jordan Love on this football team with the talent that we have is a team that can make it into the playoffs. One team has to make it. And there's no team in this division that we think right now is, or at least I don't anyway, is running away with the odds right now. I mean, there's the fan favorite of the Detroit Lions because everyone loves Detroit and everyone loves Dan Campbell and what they bring to the table. There's, of course, I think a lot of people would expect like just the analytical favorites to be the Vikings because, well, they're the best team in the division. There's no denying that they are the best team in the division. No one other than Bears fans think the Bears are going to win the division. So, like, we don't have to talk about that. But when I look at the Packers, I look at a team that is super talented offensively, a team that's super talented defensively. And I think what we have this season for the first time, really since we've kind of done this transition offensively, is for the first time since Matt LaFleur has been there, we're going to see what a Matt LaFleur offense looks like. And we haven't seen that since he's been there. Of course, he got there in 2019. Those 3 seasons, we went 13-3 for consecutive seasons, won the most games ever in a 3-year span without making it to or winning a Super Bowl. We weren't seeing a Matt LaFleur offense. We were seeing a Matt LaFleur offense with Aaron Rodgers changing the play whenever he felt like it. This is the first time we're going to actually see what a Matt LaFleur offense, how it's going to run, and how effective it looks on a week-to-week basis. And so from that standpoint, if the Matt LaFleur offense is what it's supposed to be, and it's supposed to be something similar to what the Rams run or what the 49ers run, if it really is that, and if it really is as effective as that, then I think it is reasonable to expect down the stretch, once the growing pains have gone after the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season, down the stretch, I think it is reasonable to expect that the Green Bay Packers will be vying for a wild card spot in the playoffs. Those are not my expectations right now. My expectations right now are 6 or 7 wins and a 25-10, 25-12 season from Jordan Love. But as the season progresses, and as Jordan Love gets better and gets more comfortable, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the Packers to be in the hunt for the 6th or 7th seed in the NFC come playoff time.
And especially when you take a look right at the last 5 games that they have in the season, they have at the Giants, and I'm not super big on the Giants, so maybe I'm a little bit lower on them than everybody else. But they go Giants, Buccaneers, Panthers, Vikings, who I expect to take a step back. And again, I did not expect the Packers to go out and blow them out in the final week when Aaron Rodgers looked extra pedestrian in that game. And then they faced the Bears at home in the last week of the season. Like, those are 5 very winnable games down the stretch. So if they are, through those growing pains, those are 5 very winnable games that could potentially push them into a wild card spot. And when I think, and I'll speak for Marcus, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when we say vying for a wild card spot, we're talking about 7 seed. Like, I'm not talking 5 or 6. We're talking 7 seed. We're talking.
I mean, they could maybe be the 6th seed depending on how things
maybe.
Go. We're talking the very last spot.
Yeah.
Just like last year. Very
exactly.
last.
Yeah.
Very
so
last.
So, maybe again, they get the luck of that schedule, right? Of having that third place schedule, and that helps them sneak into that final wild card spot. But I totally think that both of your guys' expectations are completely reasonable. Like, I'm not expecting a whole lot of winning out of this team, and I don't think that we necessarily should be. See those flashes from the guy you took with one of your high overall picks, the guy that you gave a 1-year extension to early to not have to pick up the player option. Let's see some flashes from that guy.